I remember I was in jail in the middle of nowhere in Azerbaijan, and I received a book. It was a gift. Václav Havel sent me a book. It was a very touching moment to receive such a book in a jail where you may think you're forgotten and people don't know your story. They don't know the story of your country. So I'm one of citizens of Azerbaijan. This is a country between Russia, Iran and Turkey, somewhere in the Caucasus, and we have been run for decades by one family. It was ex-KGB general Heydar Aliyev who came to power in Soviet times and for decades was staying in power. Then shortly they were not in power, but then in 94, 93 they came to power again. And when he died in 2003, it was his son, of course, who became the president. So this family brought to Azerbaijan, even in Soviet times, the corruption of unprecedented magnitude, even for Soviet standards. And I thought to myself, what can I do, one man, powerless, as I was? So we decided to laugh. There was a case when Azerbaijani government bought 2 donkeys, and each of the donkeys cost, by the way, they were imported from Germany. Each of the donkeys cost 42,000 euros. It was its official figure, and it was done in 2008. So journalists started to ask the government, is it real? I mean, why donkey should cost 42,000 euros? No comment from government, silence. Well, I bought a costume when I was in New York and came to Azerbaijan, and with friends we organized a press conference for a donkey. And a friend of mine, we dressed him in a donkey, and he started giving press conference to a journalist trying to explain why he cost 42,000 euros. And donkey started to answer, well, because I speak several languages, because I'm category A donkey, and because I play violin. So this is just one example, and not the biggest waste we had in the history of Azerbaijan, but it's very symbolic about the waste of public resources we're experiencing in Azerbaijan, about the level of corruption. But we cannot always laugh, as couldn't laugh Bayram and Giyas, 2 activists who recently dared to write a graffiti Happy Slave Day on the monument of ex-KGB general, ex-president, ex-dictator Heydar Aliyev, who is of course also father of the current president. And this is what was happening with them. It was their own witness that they passed while the lawyers, they scotched their legs, hands, and they were just throwing them up in the air and they would just fall down. But that's unfortunately not the only story in Azerbaijan. There are hundreds, thousands of similar stories, and in most of the cases, people do not want even to talk about it, because when you start talking about it, they start targeting your family members. I was just one of many people who was in jail. While I was in jail, my father has died. I had to go through a lot of difficult moments in my life, and I also had time to think, what can I do when I leave the jail? And I made a decision not to be silenced. In a country where millions are silenced or have fear, I decided with friends to do something that will give voice to millions. So 3 years ago it was a dream, but the idea we had is creating independent online media for Azerbaijan, which we called Meydan TV. Meydan means a square. It has nothing to do with Ukraine. is just the word we always used. It's coming from Turkish or, I don't know, Arabic. So we started this work, and people said, no, you are not professional, you cannot do it. There is no conditions for this. But we started doing it. Well, I had no idea about media management, I had no idea about journalism, but I knew that we have to do it. So we started, and we very quickly started hiring professionals, inviting young, courageous people, training them, and doing stories about ordinary people. Stories about the family that was living next to a luxurious sport facilities that government spent 500 million euros to build for European games, and never used since then, really. And that family was just living in a wagon, so we were reporting about that family. We were reporting about people who have no rights, who have housing problems, real Azeris who have real everyday problems. So 3 years later, and just to give you one figure for a context, we have 9 million people living in Azerbaijan, and there is only 1.5 million people on Facebook users in Azerbaijan. So 3 years later, what we have is we have audience 3.6 million for our Facebook page. We also have 500,000 unique users on our website. So for a small project and for a country with 9 million people, these are very impressive numbers. But we don't do just numbers. We produce good journalism. We produce journalism that Guardian republishing what we produce. We are producing investigations that are getting Tom Renner Award together with our partners, Organized Crime and Corruption Reporting Project and others. And it was exactly the project about Khadija, another friend, investigative journalist, who was uncovering exactly the corruption of President and Aliyev family, who were basically stealing billions from our country and planting this in offshores. And she was sentenced to 7.5 years in jail. She's still in jail. Recently, Washington Post ran an editorial, and I will quote them. This is exactly what they wrote. Mr. Aliyev should free all political prisoners, drop the prosecution of Meydan TV, because the government opened secretly criminal case against Meydan TV, and sit down to watch the channel himself. He might learn something about the values a nation needs to succeed in the modern age. So Meydan TV is a story how independent media can reach out to millions of people in closed societies. People who fight for women's rights, people who fight for political rights, for civil liberties, people who fight for children's rights, all who feel that they're voiceless. We're giving them the voice, and we're reaching now to almost 30% of population, and I have to repeat it, in a closed society like Azerbaijan. And I believe that we can reach out in any closed society to 20, 30, 50, 60, 80% of people. With internet, with samizdat, with USBs, with anything. We can do that. We can do it in Russia, we can do it in Central Asia, we can do it in Africa, we can do it in Latin America. Thank you very much.